Hi, I'm Amy,
And I'm Sam, and we're bad at watching movies.
but we're good at lying, being in a coma, and falling in love with the wrong or right brother. Okay.
She doesn't sweat at all.
Hey, Luce, is this guy bothering you?
Are you kidding me?
Are we bad at watching movies?
In this episode, we'll be discussing the 1995 movie While You Were Sleeping.
Here at Bad at Watching Movies, we watch some of our favorite movies, good or bad. We talk about everything from scenes to characters, and we always have something to laugh about.
It's true. The IMDb summary for this movie is: a hopelessly romantic Chicago Transit Authority token collector is mistaken for the fiance of a coma patient.
That is a mouthful.
That is the Chicago Transit Authority, or the CTA for short.
CTA, yes. Some of the notable characters in this movie, we'll just go through a few. There are a lot of characters in this movie, but we'll touch on them when we get to them later on. But the main character is Lucy, played by the iconic Sandra Bullock. Miss Congeniality. What's that one? Gravity.
Gravity,
Where she's floating in
yeah.
space. Yeah, that one
Scary to
freaks me out.
Yes, The Blind Side, and also she's just like adorable in this movie.
What's that Bird Box one?
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that movie.
Yeah, that was a
like-
whole, and then the Bird Box challenge, and then people, and it was like a whole controversy.
Oh my
because-
god!
Do you remember that?
I forgot. Why does that feel like a million years ago?
It was. I mean, what was that, like college?
I don't know.
Are we that old?
We're old. It's fine. We're fine. Our next character is Jack, played by Bill Pullman.
Mhm.
He is the brother of Peter, who we'll talk about in a second. Bill Pullman is in a bunch of movies, especially during this era in the 90s. The thing I remember him most from is Spaceballs, which is like a Star Wars parody.
Yeah.
It is just goofy, and I love it.
Next, we have Peter, played by Peter Gallagher. He is the guy who is in the coma.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, he sleeps for most of the movie.
He's the one who's been sleeping
Yes.
while Peter was sleeping.
Yes.
What else is he in? He's in Titanic. He is in Mr. Deeds. He's like the mean antagonist in that movie, which I feel like he plays very well.
Yeah.
And I think that's all I remember him from. And then our next character is Saul. Saul is played by Jack Warden. Saul is one of my favorite characters in the whole
Yes.
movie. He is the godfather of all of the kids. So Jack, Peter, and Mary.
Yeah.
And he's kind of a wise figure, but at the same time, he doesn't always have the best advice.
No.
But
No.
he's very nice, and he's
Yeah.
very understanding, and he's a great ally for Lucy.
Yeah. And then we have Joe Jr., played by Michael Rispoli. Joe Jr. is kind of an odd character. He's just a weird guy.
Yeah, he's creepy, but he's also
Yeah.
very funny. He's just kind of like, I don't know how to really describe him, but he's
I mean, just think of
fully unaware.
think of just like the most stereotypical like Chicago guy.
Yeah,
That's Joe Jr.
Yep, 100% Joe Jr.
And then kind of the rest of the characters are the family of Peter and Jack.
Mhm.
But we'll talk about them when we get to them. They're kind of we kind of only see them in units.
Yeah.
They're really travel
They're always
together.
pretty much together, yeah.
But yeah, so those are the characters. This movie kind of takes place Christmas through New Year's is kind of the timeline. So that week in between Christmas and New Year's. So we start off with the classic flying over Chicago.
Mhm.
No Christmas song to start, but it has like the "This Will Be" from Cinderella Story with Hilary Duff. I'm pretty sure that's how the movie opens.
I'm pretty sure it's the same song.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure too.
And that makes me think maybe we need to watch that movie sometime.
Yeah, it's on our list.
I think it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it took me half the movie to realize they were in Chicago. I will admit, I put New York at first, and then because the
Because we
subway,
just watched. Yeah.
the subway. But then at some point they say Chicago, and I go, "Oh shoot, they're in Chicago," because it's a city line. I don't
It's
know
a city.
the different cities.
It's winter. What?
I get
Well, you gonna
Chicago
sue
and
me?
I get Chicago and Boston mixed up all the fucking time. Like it's a problem.
We're from the West Coast. We don't
Yeah,
understand
we
these
don't
things.
get it. We don't get it. So it kind of goes into Lucy describing her childhood, which was she was really close with her dad. Her mom died when she was really young.
Yes.
They would go travel together to far off places. Like I think one of them was
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee.
Yeah. Tries to make it sound all exotic.
And I made a note that it does seem really similar to the beginning of A Cinderella Story with Hilary Duff, because it's like the dad and I don't remember her name, but the little girl who's supposed to be like Hilary Duff's character.
Yeah.
They're like playing baseball together in A Cinderella Story. So it starts off with them like having adventures, reading in bed, and it even has a snow globe.
Yeah.
So it's like the exact.
It's very
it's the exact same move through.
But yeah, she's talking about her dad. Her dad was kind of this romantic, and he met the mother, and he had given her this globe.
Yeah.
And he said that she gave me the world, which was just a globe, but it's very cute and very sentimental.
Yeah.
And I think it just shows how much Lucy wants something really romantic and just really like that fantasy of like, I just want to be with someone who really loves me. And
Right.
And then it kind of shows like, okay, yeah, her father died as well, so she's all alone, and all she really wants is connection with other people.
Yeah. So cut to present time. Lucy works as a train station as a token girl. So she basically is up front. People give the tokens, and then she's kind of just the person to like buzz them in or whatever.
Yeah. Which, I mean, wow. I don't even know if that's a job anymore at like something like the CTA. Like, I feel like it'd be on your phone, you scan it.
Or a machine.
Yeah. Like, I think it's just not probably a job anymore. There might be a couple attendants for those few people who have like cash, but like,
yeah.
There's no way.
Because the TriMet now is like you go to the machine.
Yeah.
And you swipe your credit card, or I have it on an app on my phone. So she describes a guy that she sees every day, and she's basically like fantasizing about him, trying to get up the courage to talk to him. She's like, I see him every day between 8:05 and 8:30, and like she always sees him walk in and stuff.
Yeah, she sees him go by, and it's just funny because she's just got this whole image in her head of like, this is what our life together would be like. And it's just very much, it just reminds me of like in high school when you have like a really strong crush and like, I could see myself marrying that person, and this is what it would be like.
Right. Right. And then we cut to Lucy in her apartment trying to get a Christmas tree up through the window with a rope, because I guess we see the hallway later, and I feel like a Christmas tree would fit up the stairwell, but maybe not.
Yeah, maybe not. I don't know.
So I'm not sure. But it drops, and it goes through the window below.
Yeah, and you just hear someone yell, Lucy! And cut to the apartment down below, which is Joe, the owner of the building and father of Joe Jr.
Yep.
And he's actually pretty cool about it. He's like, ugh, this is like sucks, but whatever. Like, he's really nice to Lucy, and I think he's a very nice landlord, I would say, which is hard to come by.
Yes. Yes. And then so we meet Joe Jr. He walks out, and it's like, oh, can I give this bottle of liquor to my probation officer?
God.
And it's typical Chicago accent, big personality. He's checking Lucy out, you know. And then the Joe quote, who's Joe Jr.'s dad, he says, Lucy, you're a nice girl. And Joe Jr. still single, and then the camera pans to Joe Jr. kneeling down with his butt crack hanging out, and
Beautiful.
then Lucy goes, "Yeah, it's a shocker."
Real shocker there. Oh my God.
Which is true.
So then we cut over to Lucy having a conversation with her boss, who he's kind of talking up a storm of like how great Lucy is. He's like, oh, I'm gonna nominate you for Employee of the Month.
Yeah.
You get to be on a float in the Christmas parade or whatever, the New Year's parade, and all this stuff. And it's really just kind of him trying to actually ask, hey, can you work on Christmas?
Right.
Which, that's so tough.
That is really tough. And basically it's because she is kind of a loner. She doesn't have a family or anything. And he's like, well, blah, blah, blah is going to be out. She's out sick, and blah, blah, blah has family. And I promised my kids that I would be there. So you have to work because you don't have anybody.
So then she's decorating her Christmas tree?
Decorating her Christmas tree, one tinsel at a time, just one by one, putting it on the tree.
Fun.
That was such the vibe, I feel like, back then, was tinsel trees. So we are at the train station, I think on Christmas. I think this is Christmas Day.
Mm-hmm.
Lucy sees the guy that she's been fantasizing about, and he finally says something to her. He's like,
does.
Merry Christmas. And she just goes, Like, that's all she says. And then she's like, gets all mad at herself because she's like, she had the one opportunity.
Yeah, it was
to
her
say-
moment.
Yeah. And then she just went, instead.
So close.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's waiting for his train. It's not quite there yet.
No.
And these two men approach him and they try to mug him. They try to steal his stuff. He kind of fights back a little bit and kind
Yeah.
of tries to push him off. But in this whole scuffle, he gets pushed onto the train tracks and they
Right.
run off.
Right. And then Lucy runs over to help him, so she basically jumps on him. And then a Lucy quote that I really loved was, "God, you smell good."
Because there's literally a train coming. She's trying to get him off
It's
the
an
tracks.
express.
It's an express. And here she is sniffing him and being like, "Oh my god, he smells
Oh my
good."
God, he
But
smells
honestly, I probably do the same.
And he probably does smell delicious.
Oh yeah, I mean, it seems
Oh
like
my
he's
God.
got money. He's probably pays for a nice cologne.
Oh yeah.
And so the train is coming. She has no idea what to do, and she just kind of grabs him and just rolls over, and they barely make it off the
Which-
tracks.
It's probably a body double for both of them, right?
I would assume
They're
so.
not gonna have Sandra rolling around on the ground.
I don't know. We got to ask her. Sandra, come on the show.
Sandra,
We would love to
come
do
on.
an interview.
Come on.
Yeah. So I could not imagine, and I'm sure they had like trains blocked
'Cause
off.
she's
and,
small,
yeah.
and he's not big, but he's a man.
Yeah.
I would be like, okay, we're both
So
dead.
stressful. All right,
We're
we're
both
dead.
dead.
So that was cool. But at least I got to smell you before I
Yes.
died.
So we are at the hospital because they rushed him to the hospital, obviously,
Mhm.
because he was like, he woke up, saw her, and then went back out and was unconscious. So they took him to the hospital, and Lucy rushes over, but she's stopped by the nurse that says family only. And then she mutters to herself, "Well, I was going to marry him." Another nurse overhears it.
Wanda.
And this is where the movie really starts.
Yeah.
This is where all the confusion starts.
So then Wanda's like, oh, she was going to marry him. I'm going to take her to the room to
Yep.
meet him.
Yep.
And so she's there, and Lucy's like, oh my God, like taking in, the moment he's in a coma, and then in walks the entire family.
For the family, we have Ox, who is the dad
Mm-hmm.
of Peter, or of the guy. We don't actually know his name. So we have Ox, the dad. We have Saul, who we talked about, who is like the family friend godfather.
Mm-hmm.
We have Elsie, who is the most fabulous character
I
in
love
this entire
Elsie.
movie. She's actually in Mary Poppins.
Yeah, she's the mom in Mary
Yep.
Poppins.
Yep. So she's fabulous. Midge, who's the mom, and Mary is the sister. So we have 5 people walk in and it's chaos. They're all talking over each other. They're like, "Oh my gosh, my boy." The doctor's like, "Who the heck are you?" We're like, "We're the parents." And it's like everyone's freaking out, but they walk in and yeah, so we meet the family.
Yeah, and the doctor's like, he's in a coma, but he's stable. Like,
Yeah.
they make it very clear, like, he's
He's
gonna be
fine.
okay.
He's fine,
It just
yeah.
might be some time that he needs to heal, and he's gonna be out. Like, he's gonna be in this coma.
Right.
And the police officer's like, they're like, who is this? The family's like, who is this woman here? And she's like, what do I say? And the police officer's like, well, she saved his life. And then someone's like, oh, it's her fiance.
Oh my gosh. Freaking Wanda. Freaking Wanda.
And Lucy does not know what to do.
No.
She's like, wait, no, and everything just kind of goes off the rails. And the family's like, what? We didn't know he was engaged. Like, he never told us. He never said a thing.
Yeah.
Which, as we find out a little more about Peter, it doesn't sound like that would necessarily be out of the question that he might not tell his family about something like this.
Yeah, we learn things later on, which I feel like he's very estranged from the family a little bit, where he's
Yeah.
kind of gone off to do his own thing, so he really doesn't talk to the family very much.
Right.
So it would make sense, I guess, in their relationship that they wouldn't know. But yeah, it's like that classic comedy moment too of all the family talking over, where Lucy is trying so hard
Yeah,
to
she
get a
wants
word
to
in.
say something.
She wants to be like, nope, we're stopping this. Like, this isn't correct.
Right.
But it's like, the mom's like, oh my gosh, I'm so happy he found somebody.
Yeah, she
and
just
the dad's
hugs
like,
her
I'm
and-
so sorry, we didn't know that you existed. And the sister's like, oh my gosh. And so it's just like absolute chaos. So Lucy is just like forced to kind of go along with it. And they give her a big family group hug.
Yeah, it's so sweet, and you're just like, oh my God, this family they just met this woman. They're like, okay, like you're part of the family
Yeah,
essentially.
you're good. Yeah.
And so cut to Lucy outside of the hospital talking to Wanda and being like, why did you say that? And she's like, well, you said you were gonna marry him.
Yeah.
And then
And then,
Wanda.
yeah, a great Wanda quote is, well, next time you talk to yourself, tell yourself you're single and end the conversation.
Burn. Wow.
Oh my gosh, Wanda.
Rough. Yeah.
God.
Way to take responsibility.
Yeah, she's like, well, it's your fault.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah. I feel like she's just so nervous that she's like, oh, I tried to do the right thing, but
Yeah.
oops.
Oops.
Saul comes out and he kind of has a short conversation there because he's like, oh, hey, nurse, where is the pharmacy? Elsie needs some medication.
Yeah.
And then he has a short little brief moment with Lucy and he says, I think you saved the whole family by like being here. Like because Peter's out, you're kind of like taking his place. Like they're just so happy to see you and know that Peter has someone in his life. But
they
just
probably worry about him.
Oh, yeah. But to hear, I think you saved the whole family when you just like this whole lie happened and you're like, I want to tell the truth and now you're going to tell me this. Like,
Yeah.
I can't like I cannot say the truth now. Like I'm
Right.
stuck.
Yeah.
So
Kind of stuck. So we go to the waiting room where they're all kind of sitting around. The whole family's sitting around just staring at Lucy. And she's kind of like twiddling her thumbs, basically. And so they're kind of asking her, like, oh, how'd you meet Peter? And she kind of gives like a very generic like answer, like, oh, when I saw him, it was love at first sight. And, you know, every time I've seen him since, like, I just fall in love with him more and more, blah, 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 blah. Like, basically, like the most basic response. But kind of technically not telling a lie.
right.
In the same
Yeah,
way.
because it's kind of like what she said earlier in the beginning of the movie where she's like, well, I
Right.
met like I saw his eyes and I just knew he was the one. Like
Yeah.
it's that kind of stuff where it's like, well, she was saying that earlier, so it's not necessarily a lie.
Right.
Also, Elsie, the grandma, is essentially like telling the story for her in a lot of ways where she's like, oh, I bet it was this. And like, I bet you did this. And then they're like, let her tell it. And she's like, she is telling it. And she goes on. And
Yes.
Elsie just goes on to tell the story.
Elsie's great. So Lucy gets home and Joe Jr. Asks her out on the date the following night. She doesn't really say yes or no. She just kind of goes,
Yeah.
walks up the stairs and goes into her
Because at
apartment.
this point, Joe Jr. should know better.
Yeah.
Like, she has not given him any signals. She has never said yes.
Yeah.
I have a feeling in the past they've had similar encounters because he's very relentless.
Yes.
And she's probably said no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they live in the same building, so it's like she really can't escape him.
Yeah.
So Lucy then goes back to the hospital that night and she talks to Peter. I did have a note, and when I watched it again, it was the same note where it's like, it's just so weird that the hospital was lit.
Yeah. Like
just
middle of the
feels
night.
like it's so,
No one else is there, it seems.
and like it's the 90s, but I feel like there's no visiting hours. Like I feel like nowadays you can go to the hospital from like 9 to 4 or 5.
Times. Yeah. So I don't know if it was loosey goosey or whatnot, but I mean,
Yeah.
I understand that, like, it's a hospital, so they have to have some lights on because people are going to be in and out regardless. And if someone, there's an emergency, they got to get nurses and stuff there.
Right, but I feel like in some other shows you can tell that if it's the middle of the night,
it's
because like
nighttime,
it's
yeah.
the lights are dimmed at
Right.
least, but it was like bright anyway. That was just kind of a note that I had. But yeah, so she kind of goes off on this like monologue, telling him the truth, telling Peter the truth while he's still in a coma.
Mhm.
And I just love this moment that Lucy said. She's like, I mean, if you were not asleep, we wouldn't be in this mess. Not that I'm blaming you. And then she reaches out, touches touches his foot, and then she goes, oh, sorry. Just like, it's just such a good writing. And I just feel like the movie's so funny.
Yeah. The
There's like
movie's
these
hilarious.
moments where it's like, oh my gosh, that was like, and Sandra is just fabulous.
She knows how to deliver a monologue.
Yes.
Like, and she does it a couple times in this movie. Obviously, we're in the climax. But yeah, she just goes off this whole thing, and you just feel for her in like a minute because the very end of it, she's like, "Do you ever fall in love with someone who's like in a coma, essentially, like who you've never even talked to?" And it's just like, "Oh my god, like
Yeah.
I'm sobbing, Sandra, you need love."
Yeah. But then we cut to Saul standing outside the waiting room.
Right. So I mean, Lucy has still not learned her lesson of like thinking out loud.
No,
because
that is
Saul
such
overheard her thinking out loud again.
It's such a classic movie thing where
Oh,
you
yeah.
think out loud. I mean, and Sam thing.
I do
'cause
it
you
out
do
loud
too.
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's probably best that I work from home now because, oh my god, in an office space, people are like, "What are you saying? What are you talking?" I'm like,
What?
"I'm thinking out loud. You don't have to just tune me out."
Just don't listen
Yeah,
to
don't
me.
listen to me. So Lucy falls asleep there, wakes up the next morning. She kind of gets her stuff together and she's about to head out. And of course, the whole family rushes in.
Yes. Yep. And they invite her to celebrate Christmas with them.
Yeah, which is so nice. They're like,
super sweet.
ugh, we didn't get to celebrate Christmas because of all of this, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to join us? And Lucy like thinks it over. They give her the card because it's Ox's business card.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, we're in the the estate sale business. We buy furniture from dead people.
Yep.
And I just love that line. And the actor for Ox is so funny. He's in a bunch of other things like Everybody Loves Raymond, and I remember him from the sequel of the Scooby-Doo movies because he's like one of the creepy people who's like a red herring for the suspect. But his humor is so funny and it's so dry, and the way he delivers his lines always cracks me up.
Yeah.
Like, we buy furniture from dead people.
Yeah, just very straight. This is how it is. And then on her way out of the hospital, she is handed Peter's personal belongings, and then she finds out from Peter's college friend that they were playing basketball together, and he had a pencil in his pocket.
Yeah,
and that's all we learn.
We don't get to fill in the whole thing. We know, okay, so he's probably there to go visit Peter. Like, oh no, what happened? Is it related to whatever we did? And
Right.
Lucy's like, what is going on? And so he tells Lucy the story, which we don't get to see, but
No.
we'll find out later.
Yeah. And my next note is she's having a hard time with the hot dog guy.
Oh my gosh, yeah. There's a lot of times where we cut to her on her lunch break getting a
Yeah.
hot dog from the hot dog guy, and she always is like the usual. And he's like, what's the usual? And she's like, mustard, Coke. Simple order.
Simple order, but he never gets it right.
He never gets it, which I get. You know, he probably has tons of customers. But when Jerry orders, he knows exactly what he wants.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's just kind of to highlight how like Lucy just gets overlooked all the time. It's really sad.
Yeah. But she's having a conversation while she's getting a hot dog with Jerry, who is her boss. And then Jerry gives her the advice to lie because he tells her a story about how when he proposed to his wife,
Yeah.
his wife's grandmother's intestines exploded. And he says, you need to lie because it might kill the grandma to tell the truth.
Yeah, because Elsie has
You
a
might
heart
just
problem.
shoot her,
Yeah,
is
he's
what
like,
he
you might
said.
as well shoot her. I'm like, oh my God. Holy moly. Yeah. And then we cut back to Lucy. She's sitting alone at home again. She's with her cat. She feeds the cat. She's eating some Oreos because everyone loves Oreos. And this bothers me every time I watch this movie, but she dunks one of her cookies into the cat's milk in the bowl. And I'm like, it could be very clean. I don't know. But
Yeah.
it's the cat's bowl. You don't need to dip your cookie in
Yeah.
there.
Also, I realized the second time I watched it through, because I was so confused. I was like, so there's a box that looks like a cereal box. And so she's putting milk and then another thing. And so in the first time I watched it, I was like, oh, she's pouring cereal for a cat, but it's cat food
Yeah.
in a box.
Magic.
And I was like, huh, I've never, maybe it exists now, but I've never seen it. I feel like they're mostly
It's
in
always
bags.
in a bag.
Anyway, but
It was the 90s.
it was a different time.
We had box cat food.
Yeah, and we could go to the hospital anytime we wanted.
Anytime. Woohoo.
She ends up going to the Christmas party.
Yeah.
with the family.
She makes the decision to go. She
Yep.
brings a little poinsettia with her as like
Yeah.
a peace offering or a gift, you know. And before she goes in, Saul's out there because he's gonna take a smoke break with his cigar.
Yeah,
And he's like, "Oh, would you walk with me and talk with me for a little bit?" So they have a conversation. And he doesn't reveal that he knows about Lucy's secret and that he
No.
overheard it, but he does have like I think he kind of wants to gauge to see like, okay, does she have good intentions here?
Mm-hmm.
And by the end of it, he's like, yeah, I believe you wouldn't hurt them and that you're a good person. And
Yeah.
they kind of connect over. She had lost her father. He had lost his wife. And
Yeah.
so they talk about that and their connection of, losing someone.
right. It's a really cute party. And they're just really a fun family. It's again kind of that like same chaos as it was in like the hospital where they're all talking over each other. They're like, Uncle blah 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 from Buffalo. It's like, I don't know Uncle blah. Oh, I know Uncle whatever from Buffalo. And Mary gets to get her ears pierced, and Midge gets like a nice bracelet,
Yeah.
and it's so cute. And even Lucy gets a present at one point.
Yeah, which is so sweet because they met her the day before.
Yeah.
Like, that means in one day, they were like, we're going to get her a present. We're going to make sure she feels at home when she comes over.
Yeah.
If she even comes over. Like, they invited
Right.
her not knowing if she'd even say yes.
And they got her a stocking.
Yeah. At the very end of the scene, it pans over. At the very end is her stocking. And I'm like, these are such nice people.
Yeah.
Ugh.
And then we cut to an apartment, I think, So we cut to an apartment, and it's a voicemail, and it's Ashley leaving a voicemail for Peter. And she is saying that she wants to marry Peter.
Yeah. And so Ashley is someone that he had proposed to previously. He's
Yeah.
the last person that the family remembers him dating.
Yeah.
They didn't get any updates other than that, really.
Right.
But something that the dad says earlier, because her name is Ashley Bartlett Bacon, he just says, pretty high and mighty for someone named after breakfast food. I love that line.
I do too. And then we meet Jack. He's cute. He's tall. You know, he looks like Owen Wilson.
A little bit.
A little
yeah,
bit.
He has a thing for denim because it's the 90s.
Oh my god, the outfits in this. I wish
love
it
them.
would go back like the mom jean. I mean, I guess mom jeans are in style, but it was the way that it looked
Yeah.
on people in the 90s and the way that guys dress, so they always have like their shirt tucked in. Anyway.
Yeah, it's very, very cute. Yeah, so Jack comes in middle of the night, and Lucy's asleep on the couch.
Yeah.
Likely because she had a little bit of Elsie's eggnog, and it sounds like it was a little strong.
Yeah.
And so like it's just a conversation between Mary and Jack, and she's like, "Oh, Jack, like that's Lucy. That's who this is." And he's like, "Lucy, who's that?" And like,
Yeah.
Peter's fiance, kind of catching Jack up, and he seems very inquisitive.
Yeah. He
yeah.
doesn't really believe. You can tell he's a little skeptical. He's like Peter's fiance?
Yeah, like I would have known about this, right? Like, and it does seem like Peter and Jack have a closer connection than Peter and the rest of the family.
Which makes sense
Yeah.
because it's like I feel like if I had a falling out with, which knock on wood because I would hate that, but if I had a falling out with my family, I feel like my brother and I would still
have like,
communicate.
conversations.
Yeah, because we're closer in age and we can kind of understand parents and all of
the
that.
situation. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the next morning, and kind of a funny thing is that again, watching it for a second time, you notice so many more things, but the paper boy who falls off the bicycle.
Oh my gosh, it's one of my favorite scenes, and it is so brief. It's literally just a transition scene to be like, it's morning time, and it's literally the paper boy on the bike. He's on the sidewalk. There's ice everywhere. He throws the newspaper, and the bike just goes right under him. He just falls
like
off.
falls hard, not just
I
like a
feel
little
so
like
bad,
fall,
but
but
it's
like
so
actually like eat shit. It's like super funny. But we cut to inside the house. Lucy is kind of packing up all of her stuff, making sure she's not missing anything. And she's kind of like tiptoeing out, and then Jack is like, "Good morning," sitting on the stairs.
Yeah, like literally right there. So he's obviously been waiting for her to wake up. Like it's kind of creepy,
it's a little
honestly.
weird. Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, like you must be Jack." And
Yeah.
he's like, "Yeah, that's me." And he's got that suspicious look on his face. He's like, "Yeah, we haven't." He's like, "I don't remember meeting you." And she's like, "That's because we've never met."
We've never met.
And she kind of just tries to skedaddle out the door because she's got to go to work. She's got to leave. And he's just like, "Oh, kind of welcome to the family," essentially. But you can tell he's a little suspicious. And she is, you can kind of tell maybe has a little thing for him.
Yeah, and he has a thing for her too.
I think so.
I
yeah.
think I
it's
just
a quick
think
little
so.
like,
Mhm.
you're cute.
Mm-hmm. And then we cut to church. The whole family is there, so it's like Mary, Ox, who is it? Jack, Midge, and Elsie.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's all of them.
And Saul.
And Saul.
Literally everyone except for Peter because he's in a coma.
Because he's in a
Although it
coma.
sounds like he doesn't normally go with them to church anyway.
No.
And not Lucy because she's at work.
And Mary looks, the daughter or the sister looks very upset. She's just like a teenager, like
Bored
I'm in
at church. Yeah, been there, done that.
Yeah.
It's not
Never-
always the funnest thing.
Never been there, done that. But yeah, so Jack is questioning Dad about Lucy, who she is. He's just really, really skeptical.
Mhm.
And we find out that Jack is kind of running the family business a little bit.
Yeah,
Like-
because the dad wants him to take it over. It was
Yeah.
Callahan and Sons,
Mhm.
then it was Callahan and Son.
Yeah.
So it's just Jack now, and I think he feels a lot of responsibility there. Like, I need to keep the legacy going. This is what Dad wants. This is what the family wants. Jack seems a lot more involved in the family than his brother.
Right.
But yeah, so they're talking about it. It gets a little heated. They're at church. The guy behind him is like, "Can you like stop being so loud?" And they're like, and I love that Ox is like swearing in church a little bit.
Yeah.
And then one of my favorite lines is Elsie, and she's like, "I like mass better when it's in Latin. It's better when you don't know what they're saying."
And then what's the other? She says, "I don't know how Reverend whatever got elected.
Oh,
he uses
yeah.
marijuana."
Yeah, I don't know how Joe Kelly got elected. He takes marijuana. And I love just the line, "He takes marijuana." like rather than smoke or does.
Very
takes.
grandma thing
Yeah,
to say.
yeah.
I feel like my grandma would say
He
something
takes
similar.
marijuana.
Yeah. He takes the drug.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're in Lucy's apartment. She's on her bed going through Peter's things. It's kind of weird because he has pictures of himself in his wallet, which I'm like, okay, but it's very strange to me.
I think we start to piece together like, oh, Peter's maybe a little full of himself.
Self-centered.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
okay. So we're learning a little more about the depths of who Peter actually is,
Right.
rather than just that surface level fantasy that Lucy had of him.
Right. And then she discovers cat food and she goes, oh no, and then rushes out of the apartment to go to Peter's apartment because there's possibly a cat there that hasn't been fed for, I think this is day 3.
Yeah, several days.
This is like 2 days
No
after.
cats were harmed in the making of this movie, as far as I know.
Yeah. Oh, we didn't mention Lucy's cat.
Oh yeah, Lucy has a cat too.
Lucy
I
has a
mean, we
cat.
talked about the cat food, the box, the
Yeah,
90s.
really cute. It's kind of like what kind of cat is it? It's like one of those like multicolor ones.
Yeah, like kind of a tortoise shell, but not quite.
Yeah.
She's cute.
As soon as Lucy like leaves her apartment, Jack pulls up kind of like right after she's like walking away and starts talking to Joe Jr.,
Oh,
who
no.
tells Jack that he is dating Lucy.
Because it's Joe Jr. and he's just fully delusional.
Delusional. Yeah.
Yeah, so that that's not gonna go well. We go to Lucy at Peter's apartment. She's looking for the cat and she's shaking the bag, and you look around this beautiful apartment.
Beautiful.
Wonderful view in Chicago. It's expensive, and she's shaking the bag and she's like, "Rich kitty, where are you, rich kitty?"
So good. And then Jack actually enters after her. She's kind of walking around looking for the cat and then smacks him in the face with like, what would you call it? Like one of those like butler doors that can go either way.
Yeah, it reminds me of like the saloon door that can go either way.
Yeah. So she hits him with that. He's like, how did you get in here? She's like, a key. And then she's like, he's like, you must come here a lot. And she's like, I feed the cat. Peter doesn't have a cat. And magically a cat appears.
There it is.
There it is.
So everything's coming up, Lucy.
Yes.
One thing I have to mention, because it's just so overt, is the Baskin-Robbins product placement for when she's like, do you need ice? Opens the freezer. We get like a very clear shot of, look at all the Baskin-Robbins in his freezer. Like, who has like 3 or 4 things of Baskin-Robbins ice cream in their freezer?
I don't know.
Anyway, just something I noticed.
It's like Beats nowadays, or like Samsung or something.
Yeah.
You know how they like just like
It's
hold
just there.
for like 3 seconds.
I wonder if Oreos was a sponsor too, because the Oreo logo is pretty like obvious when she's eating those too.
True.
Curious.
The phone rings at Peter's apartment, and it ends up being a call for Lucy.
Yeah, which just saves her case even more. Like
the
Jack's like trying to
cat
be
and the call.
suspicious. Yeah, the cat, the call, and now it's like, oh, we got to go to the hospital because the call was like, hey, it's customary to give blood. Is that true? I've never heard that.
Because like Peter is not like he doesn't need surgery. I feel like if that would be
Maybe
customary,
it's just in general, like, oh, you were taking care of someone in your family, you give blood to
which is great.
give blood?
It's great, but I've just never heard of something like that. So they're in the parking garage, and you can tell Jack is waiting for her to kind of like figure out, because he's trying to catch her,
Yeah.
right?
Yep,
At this point, he's trying to like, he's like, oh, she's like, oh, we could take your truck, and he's like, no, we should take Peter's car for sure. We should take Peter's car. Like,
Yeah.
you know where it is, right? And then she just clicks the button, and it happens to be the front row.
Right there.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, there it is.
There it is. Lucky again.
Yeah, and I'm just like, if he did catch her in the act, I just wonder how that would go down, you know?
I don't know.
You never really know. But anyway, they give blood together, and he's kind of prying even more, like, wow, that's really quick. You've only known each other 3 months. Like, wow. And she's done giving blood, so she gets up and walks away. He's still like attached to the thing, and he's trying to get up, and the nurse is like, no, you can't get up, and he's trying to follow her, passes out.
Yeah, just falls. Yeah, and I've had my blood taken, but I've never given blood. Have you ever given blood?
I gave blood in high school a couple times.
Did it
and
make you
then
really woozy?
I was fine. I did eat like a snack. Like I did the whole thing of
Okay.
like, sit down for a little bit, have some water, have a snack. It can make people woozy. Like some people do not do well with giving blood.
So now we move to the room where Peter is. The whole family's there. a dad ox quote, which is really funny. He's like, "What the hell? He's got a TV for? He's in a coma, for Christ's sake."
And then the mom's like, "What? Shh, he can hear you."
And then Ox is like, "Well, let's get him a radio then."
So quick. I love it.
I love
this
it.
script. I love these characters.
Yeah. And then Jack and Lucy are walking into the room. Jack's still like hounding her with questions like, what's his favorite Stooges? His favorite song, which is Puff the Magic Dragon.
Yeah. It's a good song.
Okay.
All right.
And then family is wondering why he is doing that. They're like, why are you hammering her with all their questions? And
Yeah.
he's like, don't ask me, ask her boyfriend.
Mr. Joe Fusco Jr.
Yep.
And Lucy can't even like keep it together. She's like, "Oh, are you kidding me? Like Joe Jr."
And Jack says, he said you were intimate. And then Lucy says, yeah, he also said he invented the aluminum foil. He's delusional.
Yeah.
100%. 100%.
Oh no.
And then the grandma is kind of like, well, if she wants to prove it, she would prove it. And so they all kind of like look to her. And she's kind of going, oh my gosh. And we find out that Peter has one testicle.
Yeah, she's like, "What can I use?" Ooh, go back to that thing that Peter's coworker had stopped me and talked to me about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it turns out they were playing basketball, and somehow, I mean, he mentions the pencil, so I'm imagining there was a puncture of some kind, and it would not feel good. And the whole family's like, "Well, how do we like confirm this?" And this is the most awkward scene.
It's awful.
And they're like, "Well, how do we gotta check?" And so the mom's like, "I'm his mother, I'll do it."
Yeah.
So we just get this scene of her like lifting the top. Obviously we don't see anything, but like her lifting the blanket and like she just starts to reach under, and then we just cut to them on the elevator.
Yeah. And the grandma has a really great quote where she goes, well, look on the bright side. He's got more room in his jockey shorts.
I love Elsie.
She is the best.
So Lucy's at home.
Yeah.
Enter Joe Jr. first.
Yep. He knocks on the door. And then he comes in and says, you stood me up.
Yeah, even though she never said she was going to go with him at all. And she's like, I didn't say I was going to go.
No.
They're about to get more into the conversation, but knock, 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 knock. There's another person at the door.
Yep. And it is Soul.
Yeah.
Soul is at the door. And he comes over to basically tell Lucy, I know.
Yeah.
I know your secret. I overheard you at the hospital, but you have to keep up with it. You know?
Another person who's like, you can keep going. He essentially says they love you so much, and Peter's out right now, so like you're kind of filling his place in some ways. Like it's just like it's nice to have you around.
You're helping in some way, so just keep it up.
Yeah.
Keep the act up, which is just like, ugh.
Meanwhile,
awful.
Joe Jr. is in her closet because she didn't want.
Yeah.
Because could you imagine, like, you just told the whole family, like, no, Joe Jr. and I are not intimate, and then someone in the family comes over and he's over in your apartment.
Yeah.
Like, I totally understand. So he's just in the closet.
Yeah, and so then she goes back to check on Joe Jr. and he's trying on her high heels.
Yeah, his foot is like in her shoe, and she's like, "You're trying on my shoes," and he's like, "I slipped. It like fell right in there."
And then there's another knock on the door, and she goes, "Doesn't anyone call anymore?"
Honestly.
And then it's Jack.
Here he is.
Jack attack.
Oh,
Jack attack.
Jack attack.
And he has an engagement present for her, and it's furniture.
Yeah, it's from the family, so it's from a dead person.
Yep.
And they want to give her a couch, and she's like, "Okay, I cannot stay here. Joe Jr.'s in the closet. Let's take it to. It'll look better in Peter's apartment. Let's take it there."
Yeah, absolutely. So they go to Peter's apartment. We find out that Jack makes furniture because he opens up the back of his truck, and she sees a rocking chair and goes, "Oh my God, that's beautiful." And he's like, "Oh no, it's not this. It's like the love seat." And then Lucy finds out that Jack actually made that, and that he kind of wants to go into business to be his own, to like make furniture, but he feels some sort of guilt because Peter has already left the family business.
Yeah, so he's like, I want to keep it going. I don't want to be, poor dad. Like it ends with him. Like that's so sad.
Yeah, and since Peter has left, Jack feels that obligation to remain even though he doesn't want to. And Lucy's like, just tell your dad. And he's like, no, I can't do that to him.
Yeah.
I can't do it to him.
They have this, but that's good. I mean, I feel like he's opening up to her, which is always
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So they unload the couch. Jack, I'm going to do this a million times.
Yep.
Jack has
We're getting
parked,
to that point.
Yeah. Jack has parked very close to the person in front of him because he
Yeah.
needs room to take the furniture out. Lucy mentioned something. She's like, you're parked way too close. Like, you're going to get boxed in. And he's like, it's fine. We got to unload the couch.
Yep.
They unload the couch. They're going to take it in, and they start getting through the door. And the doorman stops Jack.
Yep.
And he's like, what apartment? And he's like, oh, Peter Callahan's apartment. I'm with her. And he's like, well, who's she? He's like, oh, that's his fiance. And he's like, oh, I've heard about her. She's scary.
She's scary. And he's new. He's a new doorman, by the way.
New.
So, again, Lucy gets away with her shit.
Yeah, it all works out.
It all
Somehow
works
it's almost
out.
like it's a movie or something.
I don't know. That's so bizarre. And so they're trying to get the couch into Peter's apartment, and they're pushing and they're pushing. They eventually get it through the door, rips part of the door off, and knocks over a vase that has dyed blue water in it.
I don't know why it's dyed
The
blue.
90s, like,
The
rich
90s was
people-
all denim, so there was a lot of blue on you, and there was a lot of blue in your vases.
Yeah. I guess so. It was all turning up blue.
It just gets all over the carpet. And they have a cute little moment where he's like, I think the couch should go right there. And she just laughs. And
Yeah.
it's like, oh, they're bonding.
They're bonding. Peter walks Lucy home. They're kind of have like a really great conversation. Like, she's kind of opening up about like her dad and their relationship. How he was always like encouraging her to travel. She really wants to go to Florence, Italy. That's like her dream. She carries around her passport just in case.
Who knows? You never know.
Just in case she needs to flee the country. And then they get to her apartment, and there's like a 5-minute scene of them like slipping on the ice and like, oh my gosh, so cute. And they're like following each other's arm. They have moments of like looking at each other.
Yeah.
And like, they definitely like each
they're,
other.
oh my gosh, yeah, they're so smitten for each other.
Yes.
And they're slipping around. They cannot get up. And eventually they fall pretty hard. And Jack tries to get up and he rips his pants.
Yep.
Again, denim pants, denim jacket. It's all denim.
It's all denim. So then Jack kind of watches her walk into the apartment. She runs to her apartment, looks out the window, and watches him walk away.
Yeah, he's walking.
So it's really
home.
cute. And then Lucy's talking to Jerry, her boss, and she goes, "I'm having an affair. I like Jack."
And he's
And
like,
that's so funny because it's like she's not even engaged to Peter. So it's just like a really, really funny line. And he still has no idea what's going on.
yeah, he's like, who's Jack? Who's Peter? What is going? Who is who? I don't remember. Honestly, as a viewer. Sometimes I'm like, Jack, Peter. Okay.
Who are we talking about? Yeah.
And then we have a moment where Jack is alone with Peter in the hospital visiting his brother. And apparently, I mean, him and Lucy might be made for each other because he talks to himself and talks to Peter, even though he can't respond.
Yeah.
And they're playing poker together, which is him just turning over the cards for Peter.
Yeah. So they're playing cards together, and at the end of the the conversation is like pretty deep because he's like, Dad always brought up when we were kids how can you why can't you be more like Peter to Jack? So
Yeah.
we learned that like I feel like Peter was kind of like the all-star kid.
Yeah. We know that he saved
Yeah.
like some squirrels when he was younger. He was like on the tennis team and was really good. And Jack was kind of a troublemaker, it sounds like.
Yeah, like a bad boy.
Yeah. But I feel like we kind of learned that like, that's not always what's important.
Yeah.
Especially as we see Jack being closer with his family and clearly the family values that more than anything.
Right. And so we are at the family's house. They're all eating dinner together. And this scene is so funny to me because it's like the family is talking about like 5 different things. Like it's like these mashed potatoes are so creamy.
That's my favorite line. She says it like 3 times. These mashed potatoes are so creamy.
And it's like blah 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 was so
These
these
mashed
mashed
potatoes
potatoes
are
are
so
so
creamy.
creamy.
I
From
wasn't
wherever
talking
about
these mashed
well, I
potatoes are
thought
so
you were how
creamy.
tall he was.
This
And it's
and
like
that.
these mashed potatoes are so creamy.
Yeah.
And then we cut to like Lucy and Jack who are just like laughing because they're just, it's just like so quick around the table.
Yeah.
Like,
8 conversations happening at once. It just reminds me of like me and my family. We're all at Thanksgiving dinner and like, you're maybe having conversation with a couple people at this end of the table, but then somehow you hear something over there. So you hop into the conversation over there, then you come back to this one and it's just all over the place. So yeah, they have their dinner and then on the way out.
This is such a weird scene.
Yeah, because so there's mistletoe over the door because it's still like Christmas has ended and we're going to New Year's. So, no one takes down their Christmas lights immediately and all their Christmas decor. And if you do, like, chill. It's fine. You have, some time.
I mean, we still have our Christmas decorations up now. And
my
it's
gosh.
the 27th.
We'll get on that. I know I can be a little bit. I move pretty quickly once New Year's is over, but Christmas to New Year's, it's still the holiday season. Keep it up.
And to the end of January, it's fine.
It's cold, and you want lights and
It's
happy
cute.
things.
It's like winter still. So
yeah,
whatever.
I'm stuck in the dark with the rain. I'd love to have something pretty to look at.
Oh my God. It's like going to storm for sure tonight.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
fine.
We're
maybe.
fine.
We're fine. Yeah, so there's mistletoe under the door, and Lucy and Jack are headed out. And the family catches them under the mistletoe, and they're like, well, you need to kiss her. And it's so weird because, like, you're engaged to the brother. Even though it's tradition to kiss under mistletoe, I feel like, 1, you just wouldn't point it out.
Yeah.
And then 2, if someone pointed it out, you'd kind of be like, ha, 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 laugh it off and leave. But instead, they're like, no, kiss her. And they share, like, a small little, like, peck.
Yeah.
It's
I feel
weird.
weird about it.
I feel weird about it, too.
So that scene ends, and then Mary, the sister of Peter and Jack, is at the train station with a friend. So they go through, give her the token, and Lucy allows them to go into her little booth.
Yeah, she's like, oh, hey, Mary. And then Celeste, her coworker and one of her close friends, is like, who is this? And she's like, oh, she's my... And Mary's like, oh, she's going to marry my brother. And Celeste is like, what? You're getting married? And she's like, yeah, we hadn't announced it yet. And just trying to, like, catch up and not fumble here. And then Lucy's like, oh, you're going to miss your train. And so Mary and her friend are scooting out. But as they're leaving, Celeste is like, you're getting married? Like, what happened? Are you pregnant? And then Lucy sarcastically is like, yes, Celeste, I'm pregnant.
Yeah. And then we cut to the friend like going like,
oh my God.
And then, so all chaos breaks loose.
More lies.
Another voicemail from Ashley for Peter. We find out the cat in Peter's apartment is hers, so that's why no one knew about it.
Yep.
It's because it's Ashley's cat.
Worked out perfectly.
Oh my gosh. Family is celebrating New Year, and Mary walks in and announces that Lucy is pregnant, and you can tell that Jack is very upset.
Yeah. He's like, oh my God, like what? I kind of wanted to be with her, so
what the heck?
Whoa, I gotta catch up. Where was I?
And then Joe visits Lucy with a huge flower wreath. They hug. Jack sees and runs away.
Yeah, because of course he sees. It's one of those movie things. Honestly, reminds me a little bit of 12 Dates when she's like yelling at Toby and
yeah, she's like,
Miles sees that and
why can't I get out of this or something like
and you're
that.
just like, this scene just happened so the other person could look and have some sort of like misunderstanding of what was happening.
Miles. I miss him. So Jack is outside when Lucy is leaving for a party. He insists that he drive her there, even though she says that it is just a short walk. And he kind of just like follows her to the party.
Yeah, which is kind of weird.
Very
but
weird.
I think she's kind of okay with it because she's crushing. They're crushing on each other.
Yeah.
And so they're at the party.
It's Celeste's party, I think, her coworker.
Yeah, and it's a big party. They have a lot of people.
Yeah.
Jerry's there. They're all hanging out, and Jerry's like, "Who's this?" She's like, "That's Jack," and he's like, "Okay, but which one is that?" And so she's with Jack, and she's gonna drink some of the punch, and he's like, "I don't know if you should have any of that. It's spiked." And she's like, "Thank God," and he's like, but it's not good for the baby.
So loud.
So loud. The music cuts out. Everyone hears it.
Yeah.
It just cuts to Jerry's face with like his mouth open and him like putting his drink down.
Yeah. And so we cut to Lucy and Jack walking home. Lucy seems really upset. She's like, why did you announce that to everybody? I'm not pregnant. And then Jack's like, it was a big misunderstanding, and that on top of the whole Joe Jr. thing. She's like, what Joe Jr. thing? And he's like, the leaning thing. And she's like, the leaning thing?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so then he gives a demonstration,
Yep.
essentially.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, leaning is different than hugging. He's like he leans in on her and gives an example, and he's like, leaning involves wanting and accepting, and the look on her face is she's like, oh my god, like kiss me now please. But before anything can happen, Joe Jr.'s there, of
Hey,
course.
Luce, is this guy bothering you?
That was spot on. And she's like, no, and he's like, are you sure? Because it looks like he's leaning. Which then proves Jack's point of like leaning is a thing, obviously.
Yeah. And then she asked him why she thought he was pregnant, and he says that Mary told her, and she's like, oh, he only loves me because I'm pregnant, which is really sad. So it's like she kind of goes, well, he probably only thinks he loves me because I'm pregnant, which is not even true.
Right.
And then he says, spending a week with my family does not make you an expert. And Lucy says, spending a lifetime with them hasn't made you one either.
Burn.
Yeah.
Burn. Oof. Yeah. And they have like kind of a whole, like, it's probably their first fight. Not as a couple, but you know, and it's just mostly about like, you're not doing the thing that you want to do. He's like, you're not going to Florence. You're not living the life you want to live. And she's like, well, you're not having a conversation with your father about quitting the business, making furniture and doing what you want to do. And so they just have this whole, they butt heads, and essentially it's like a good conversation because I think they're both realizing, oh, maybe I need to be doing what I've always wanted to.
Right. We cut to the hospital, and the staff is kind of singing a New Year's song.
Yeah. I feel like I can sing that. That's got to be in the public domain by now. And if not, who owns that?
Yeah, let us know. And then so Peter wakes up. He's very confused. And then Lucy and the family are there because they obviously got called that he woke up.
Mm-hmm.
And then he wakes, so they're like shaking him like, Peter, your family's here. And it's kind of this scene where he like looks at his dad, looks at his mom, looks at Mary, looks at the grandma, looks at Lucy, looks at Saul, and then goes right back to Lucy and goes, who are you? It's really, really great.
And Ox immediately goes, oh my God, he has amnesia. Which I love that that's what they jump to. Like, the only person who would maybe be suspicious of any of it would be Jack. And I don't know if he's not there or if he just doesn't say anything, because at this point he's been proven wrong so many times. Right. So...
and so we cut to the scene about the doctor telling him how he has selective amnesia. And Lucy starts to tell the family the truth, but they're like, oh yeah, we know you're not pregnant. Jack told us. And so again, she does not get to tell them the truth.
Yeah. It's like a whole thing. And I just love that, like, she gets a cop out again with the selective amnesia.
Yeah. And then Saul says that he is going to tell the family the truth, but then as they're walking to go see Peter, he just like leaves.
Yeah, he just skirts off, and you're like, Lucy was like, you were supposed to handle that? Thanks, great, awesome.
Thank you so much. They go see Peter. Peter's like, A, B, C, D, like trying to remember things like he's listing his social security number.
He remembers his like middle school locker combination.
Yeah, and that he was class president, like all of that shit. And then he was like, the guy was like, or the nurse is like, do you want Jell-O? And he's like, do I like Jell-O? And then the dad's like, yum.
Yeah, you love it. It's fine.
And the mom is so happy. She's like, you have amnesia.
She's just happy he's alive,
yeah.
I think.
And then Jack is driving Lucy home from the hospital. But then she friend zones him. She's like, oh, things are going to be different tomorrow, but I'm really happy that I have such a great friend in you.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like really sad. And then Jack goes, oh, good friend.
Yeah.
Good friend.
Yeah. But like, I mean, I don't blame her, because now the man she's supposedly engaged with is awake. So like, we have to cross that hurdle first before we do anything with Jack.
Right. We kind of have to figure, do that.
Yeah.
And then we go.
And then, so then the next day, early morning, we have Ox, he's just enjoying his morning coffee. He's looking through all the obituaries because they buy furniture from dead people. So he's catching up from the holiday season, which I don't know. It's supposed to be morbid, but I think it's hilarious.
Yeah.
It's just kind of like, hey, like so-and-so passed.
We missed so much.
Yeah. So many people died. And then Jack comes in. He brings a peace offering in the form of donuts.
Dunkin' Donuts.
So
another
product
ad.
placement.
Another
I'm telling
ad.
you, this movie was
God.
funded by sweets. I love that.
Yeah.
It's a dessert movie. And Ox kind of has this thing of like, you know, life is pretty difficult and crazy, but every once in a while you have those moments of just peace. Everything's fine. Like, kind of referring to, okay, like Peter's awake, everyone's happy, we're all good. And
Yeah.
Jack's like, this is not that moment.
No.
And he comes clean and says, I want to make furniture. I don't want to take over the family business. Like, I'm sorry. And Dad actually handles it pretty well.
Yeah, he's basically like, well, why didn't you tell me sooner? Because I had an offer to get twice as much as I paid for, or I have
Yeah, could
for
have sold
this
the
business.
business. Yeah.
Yeah, so he's kind of like upset almost that he didn't tell him, but is very supportive of his endeavors. So that's a really good moment.
Yeah, which I feel like
Um,
that's good. That shows like how Lucy and Jack's conversation, where they did have that little fight, was kind of like, hey, this is motivating, and I need to do what's best for me.
Right.
So I'm like, oh, that's good. Like, he took her advice, and now it's her turn.
Yeah. Now she's got to own up.
Yeah.
So we're back in the hospital. The family's there, and Saul asks everyone to leave because he wants to talk to Peter alone, and he calls him a putz.
Yeah, he's kind of just like, you're a fool. And Peter's like, what? Are you supposed to, like, is this supposed to make me feel any better? And he's like, here's the thing. Like, Lucy is a wonderful person.
Yeah.
The whole family loves her. You should love her too.
Yeah.
And then he, instead of being like, which he should have just came clean like he said he was going to do for Lucy's sake of like, hey, like, this was all a lie. Maybe you should just back out. But he does something that I think he thinks might work, of just being like, you need to really just have a conversation with her, look her in the eyes. And if you don't feel the love for her that we all feel, then, you know, just let her go and,
Yeah.
you know, let her know that it's over. But if you really do love her in that moment, then you'll propose again. And that's not handling it, Saul.
No, I do not like that.
No, he's trying to handle it
Yeah.
tactfully, but it's just avoiding the problem.
Yeah. And I have a Saul quote it's part of that. It's, in 2 minutes, if you're not madly in love with her, tell her you want to break up. You can go back to being a putz. But if in those 2 minutes you see what the rest of us only took seconds to see, you will propose to her for the second time.
Yeah.
Which is like, I love that, because it's like, it only took the family a couple of seconds to fall in love, and that's
Yeah.
cute and that's really sweet. But also, like, do not force someone into like proposing.
Yeah, I think he thinks, oh, Peter's kind of a fool and he doesn't really like this kind of a girl. He wants someone more superficial. He'll probably say no, I think is what Saul's thinking. But we'll see what happens.
Well, we'll see.
So Peter and Lucy have their moment. Really, this is the first time they're having like a real conversation.
And it's great.
It's great. Yeah, like, they actually connect pretty well. She's like, you know, I just like, you're wonderful. And they kind of have this moment. And they talk about heroes. And she's like, you know, he's like, well, people don't get to be heroic all the time. And she's like, well, you do. You save those squirrels and all this stuff. And he's like, that was ages ago. He's like, but you saved me. You're a hero.
Yeah.
And she's like, you give up your seat every day on the train to someone who needs it. Like, that's, you know, a hero in everyone's life. And it's like just this moment of like, you know, yeah, maybe this could work. Like, you kind of have this moment of like, okay, like, Peter's not terrible and they seem to like each other a little bit here.
Yeah, it's not like an awkward conversation. It's very like normal. It feels like almost similar to some of the conversations she's had with like Jack, where it's just easy.
Yeah.
You know? So you have a moment where you're like, okay, this could work. Her whole thing could work.
Yeah.
It could just
It
work
might
out
just work
totally
out.
fine.
Yeah. And that's like, oh, okay. Yeah. So then cut to Ashley. She shows up and oh, wow. So she's like going to go visit him at the apartment because she doesn't know that he's in a coma. She's like, he's blowing me off. He's not seeing me.
You know who she reminds me of?
Who?
The mom or the stepmom from Parent Trap.
Yes, she seems so much like her. Like, I feel like they mimicked it
The
off her.
haircut,
Yep, the
yeah.
blonde hair. I feel like they both wear a lot of like kind of black, slim fitting. Like,
Yeah.
they're just a similar character. They're both a little snobby, rich, that
Right.
kind of thing. And she's like obviously pissed off, and she's talking to the doorman, and he's like, "Who are you?" And she's like, "I'm going to Peter Callahan's apartment," and he's like, "Excuse me," and when she goes, "Huh?" and he goes, "Huh?" right back. I was like, this doorman is so sassy. Like, good for him.
Well, she basically tells him like, you're not the fiance. So she's like, huh? And then he's like, huh?
Huh? Yeah, it's like a sassy little like, what?
And then we go back to the hospital. Peter and Jack are having a conversation when Peter is being moved. I think because he's awake now, he's being taken out of the ICU.
Yeah,
probably.
it doesn't need to be intensive care. He'll probably go
Yeah.
home soon, so they can just kind of put him, with another person too, just somewhere, where he doesn't need to be, checked on every 5 minutes or whatever.
Right. And then you can sense that Jack is kind of frustrated with Peter because Peter's basically like, oh, well, I'll learn to love her. I'll have a lifetime to like get to know her. And Peter's like, well, I already know her. And like, she's the type of person to just fly across the country or fly across the world just to get a stamp in her passport.
Yeah.
So you could tell that like Peter or Jack is really upset with Peter because he's like,
he wants Lucy, and
Yeah.
he feels that he knows Lucy.
and Peter's not really appreciating her as much as Jack is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Peter is appreciating the idea of her and the
Yeah.
idea of, actually, this could work.
My family loves her. I might as well. He
Yeah.
says that later on. But
Mhm.
like, it's just kind of the idea of like, well, I'll learn to love her when Jack is like, well, I already do.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. That's how I felt about that. Lucy finds Saul outside of the hospital. She's like, so how did they take it? Like, did you tell him? And then Saul's like, oh, I haven't told him yet. And so Lucy's like, you're fired. You're done.
I love that. You're done.
You're
Yeah,
done.
fired.
I'm going to handle it by myself.
Yeah, and so then Lucy doesn't know about the room change, so she's trying to go to that room.
Yeah.
Ashley is aware of the room change because she finally got caught up and is like, oh, he's in the hospital.
Yeah.
So they're actually on the elevator together, but they don't know who each other are,
Yeah.
and they end up in different places. So Ashley goes to confront Peter.
Right. And this whole scene is really funny because Peter, dang it.
Yeah.
Peter has been moved to a room with this guy, so they're like sharing a room basically.
Mhm.
And so Ashley just like storms in and is like, you son of a bitch or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, you have a fiance. Like, and he was like, we broke up. And she was like, well, I just needed to step away. He's like, you moved to, I don't know,
Portugal, I think.
Portugal
Yeah,
or something like
yeah.
that. And she's like, well, I didn't realize that you're just going to marry the next bimbo that you like see on the streets. And so they're having this fight, and we just pan over to the guy every so often, just like mouth open,
Yeah,
just like
he's just living for the drama.
eating the popcorn kind of thing, And then she's like, I want all my stuff back. And he's like, okay, well, I want mine too. And she's like, what stuff? And he was like, your nose.
Yeah.
And then your boobs.
Yeah,
Because-
she's like, oh, you want these? And she holds up her breast. And the roommate's like, he's like, oh my God, the
Yeah.
drama.
And then Ashley storms off, and then the roommate goes, moving on to greener pastures, Peter. And it's just in a
Yeah,
really
he just like
funny
thinks
way.
they're best friends, even though they've been in the same room for, I don't know, a couple hours.
Yeah, like a few hours for sure.
Because he's like, you got it, pal. Gives him a nice thumbs up. Oh my
This
goodness.
is really sweet. Lucy finally finds Peter,
Mhm.
and Peter ends up proposing. He says, my family loves you, so I might as well too.
Yeah.
Will you marry me?
And guess who's right outside the door?
Wanda.
Nurse Wanda, and she passes out.
Yeah.
Because everyone passes out in this movie.
Yeah,
And
I
it's like they all got
guess.
spritzed or something.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So then we're back at Lucy's apartment, and she's trying on, it looks to be a wedding dress, I think is what's inferred. She has it on the hanger. It's draped over her neck, so it's kind of just like laying on her.
Mhm.
She's trying out different shoes. She's asking her cat, like, which one is better? Knock, knock, knock on the door. It's Jack.
Hey,
Jack is back. He basically is just there to give her a present, like a wedding present, and he's like, here you go. I just wanted to give it to you before like you got all these presents from the wedding.
Yeah.
And it's a Florence snow globe.
It's really sweet because
Not Florence and the Machine.
not Florence and the Machine.
Florence, Italy. Okay.
Okay. I believe you. Yeah, it's just a sentimental gift that is based on what she's always wanted.
Yeah.
Which I think is really sweet. They have their moment, and you can tell that they're both kind of just like grieving the moment of like, oh, I guess we can't be together now. But they never say anything because, of course, they have not talked about this yet.
But as Jack is leaving, she runs out to like her step and she goes, can you give me any reason why I should not marry your brother? And he takes a beat and he says, I can't. And in that moment he wants to say yes because I want to marry you, but he cannot get himself to do it because he's a good person.
Yeah, he doesn't want to ruin the whole thing for
the family,
yeah, for
Peter,
everyone's sake.
for
It's
everyone
like,
involved. He doesn't want to kill grandma, you know.
Yeah, that's fair.
That's fair. Might as well shoot her.
But yeah, my note there literally, I mean, you can see bold. No! I'm just like, please, you were so close. Yeah, so we cut to the wedding, right? I mean, we're having
First.
Oh, is there a
Yeah, first Lucy gives boss Jerry a wedding
that's
invite,
right,
and
that's
he's
right.
like, "Who are you marrying?" And she's like, "It's on the invitation. I'm marrying Peter Callahan." And he's like, "Who's Peter? Who's Jack? Like, are you not marrying Jack?" And then he's like, that's crazy. And she's like, "Yeah, it's crazy. As a person who lives by herself with a cat and works at a train station, that I finally get to marry a rich guy. That's crazy."
Yeah, he's like, this is tomorrow. And she's like, you know what? I wish it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Like, I would have a stamp on my passport. It would say Florence, Italy on it. I would be doing the thing that I want to do. Yeah, I'm crazy, Jerry. Like, yeah.
Yeah, basically like, oh, I'm crazy for marrying a great guy who's rich and blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Who has a fabulous family.
Yeah.
Who will take care of me. I don't have to work this stupid job anymore. I'm crazy for doing that.
Yeah.
Basically. And then we go to the wedding.
Yes. And then we're here at the wedding, which
is at the hospital.
Yeah, at the hospital, I think, because
Can people wait?
no.
It's like, come on.
We're not waiting. We're not waiting because Peter wants to get going. Everyone wants to get going. I think Peter's like, I have a fresh start at life. And for him, the fresh start at life is like, I'm going to marry Lucy and things are going to change.
Yeah. So it has to be done right here now in the hospital. And you can see other people are like lining up to get married. Like there's an old guy in the background. Like they're like, it's like a thing. I don't know. It's kind of sad. Like, I guess if you're
about to go and you want
about to die and you want to be married,
or you want to, you know, and yeah, I don't know if they do funerals in there. I have no idea.
That's really sad. And so Jack seems really upset and is sassy with Peter,
Yeah.
and he's kind of being like, "How do I look?" Blah blah blah, and then Jack's like, "You suck," and then it's like a
Yeah.
beat, and then Peter's like, "I suck," or the outfit sucks, and Jack's like, "It's a toss up." Like, you can tell that Jack is like just so pissed.
Well, yeah, and like Peter's still like hooked up to an IV. He has the jacket on like over his shoulders because it can't be fully on.
Wait,
Wait,
just wait.
Honestly, just wait. Yeah.
Oh my god.
And everyone's like there's kind of a little murmur because like, where's Lucy? Like, she's late to her own wedding, and she walks in. She still has her coat on. She starts walking down the aisle a little bit, and then she's like, oh yeah, my coat. And she like backs up, hangs it up. She hangs it on like an IV drip.
Yeah.
And then she starts walking down the aisle. And here comes the moment. Like, she's up there. The priest, because they are Catholic,
Yeah.
is about to start the ceremony. He like literally gets 2 words in, and she's just like, I object.
Yeah. Yeah. She's just immediately like, I'm done. And then Jack's like, I would have to object too. And then another Sandra fabulous monologue.
Oh my gosh, it is. Yeah, we have
Powerful.
a whole moment of like, they're kind of like, wait, what's going on? And Sandra, Lucy just explains the whole situation. She's like, I'm in love with your son. And they're like, we know. She's like, no. Other guy.
The other one.
son. And they're like, oh my God, Jack, what did you do? And she's like, nothing. Like, literally, it was just, this is the misunderstanding. She doesn't, what I love about this is she just owns up to the whole thing. She doesn't throw anyone under the bus, whether or not they are responsible for some of this or not. Because, like, she doesn't mention Wanda's name. She just says someone, and then kind of even mentions Saul without naming Saul. She's like, we kind of like kept the thing going. And it all happened so fast. And the thing that I really love is she's like, I fell in love with you. And the dad, because it's daddy's like, you fell in love with me? And she laughs and is like, no, like all of you. Like, you gave me a family and you welcomed me into your home. And
Yeah.
I love each and every one of you. And it's so emotional. And I think she ends with kind of like I saved your life that day on the tracks, but like ultimately you saved mine because you gave me this family, and it's something that I haven't had in a really long time.
Then it pans to Elsie, who is just welled
my
with
gosh.
tears, and it's just like, yeah.
Every time
Grandma's
it pans
crying,
to her at that part, I lose it because she's just.
and then Ashley runs in.
And she objects.
And then she objects, and then her husband runs in, and he objects, and the priest or whatever it's called, get in line.
Get in line, yeah. And the mom's like, oh my God, you proposed to a married woman. So chaos ensues. I mean, they're blaming, the mom's got to be like, oh my God, Peter, Peter, you proposed to a married woman. Dad's like, oh my God, Jack, what did you do? Everyone's just chaotic, and Lucy kind of just slips out the back.
But before she does that, she has a little look at Jack, and then she leaves.
Yeah.
So Lucy is taking down her decorations at her apartment. It's after the new year when you're supposed to take down decorations. The proper time. We won't talk about it though. And there is a knock at her door, and you can tell she has like a little bit of like excitement in her, and it's Joe Jr.
Yeah, which is a bummer at first. But then he's trying to be sweet in his Joe Jr. way. Yeah. Of like, he's like, get in touch with your feminine side and embrace the child within. But then, and I know this this upsets you and this upsets me too, is he's like, but don't get like fat. Like, don't
be eating the cookies.
Yeah, don't be eating
or the
cookies.
Cakes
and it's like, okay, buddy, like let her do whatever she's got to do. This was a big ordeal.
Yeah. Sometimes I have a bad day and you just need
I need some junk.
I need some chips. I need some cookies. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Like, allow me to do what I want to do. Do not comment on what a female is eating ever. Or any person, but especially a female.
Yeah, just don't do it.
Just don't do it.
But it's Joe Jr. And ultimately he's also there because he had broken up with his like short-term girlfriend, Phyllis, from the third floor.
Yeah.
And she consoles him and she hugs him, and I think it shows that like Joe Jr. has grown a little bit. Like, he's just trying to be good, but also he kind of wants consoling as well. And she's like, you can try on some of my shoes.
Aww. So we're back at the train station where Lucy is working. It's her last day. I don't think they ever really touch on why it's her last day.
Yeah, it's just kind of like, for me, I think of it as like, well, we know she's not getting married anymore, but we know that Jack, regardless, kind of is living his dream now, or he told his dad. So my understanding is that Lucy is like, fine, even without a man, I'm going to do the thing I said I was going to do. I'm going to leave the job. Yeah. I'm going to travel. I'm going to go to Florence. Yeah. I'm just going to do it. And I'm like, oh, like, good for who? Mm-hmm. Good for you. And I also kind of understand because like after everything that's happened, I don't think I'd want to be anywhere near where even like part of these events took place. I don't want to go back to that hospital. I don't really want to go back to the family's house, obviously, if I'm not going to be a part of it.
Right.
I don't want to even go back to work where all of this started at the train station.
Just
so
to
I get it.
Cut everything out and start fresh.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's a good point.
Yeah.
And she's kind of working, doing her normal thing, and then all of a sudden a ring gets tossed in like that little bowl thing.
Yeah.
She looks up, it's in the entire family and Jack.
Yeah.
No Peter though.
No Peter.
And so Jack ends up proposing in front of the entire family, and everyone is just like really excited, really happy for them. And I have a question again. Can we just date?
Can we have a moment?
Like, I get it, but in the timeline in my mind, it has been maybe 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah. And maybe some more time has passed then, but even so, like, they haven't been dating since then. They haven't seen each other.
But the wedding happens like what, 2 days after New Year's?
I think so.
3 days after
something
New Year's?
close by, yeah.
And so I feel like then Jack comes to the train station no more than like
a week.
Yeah, maybe. So it has to be like 2 weeks to 2.5 weeks at the most since they've like actually met each other.
Yeah.
So it's just like, but maybe it's just me. I've been in a relationship for almost 5 years now.
Right.
And it's kind of like, just date.
Yeah. Take the time to get to
know
the person.
If you're going to be together forever, you can date.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
It does not change anything.
You have time, Lucy. You're good.
But it's a movie because every Christmas movie we watched, like the prince comes back to New York and just proposes.
It's a proposal. It's always a proposal.
And the dad is so happy, and it's like, you don't even know the guy though. Yeah. My dad would be petrified if I brought home a guy and was like, "This is my fiance."
Yeah,
and he did not
like,
know him.
What? Which I do love that the entire family is there because it shows that, like, yeah, she didn't just fall in love with Jack. She just fell in love with the whole family, and they all
Right.
love her back. And so it's like, it's just a special moment for all of them. And
Right.
I'm like, oh, I love that they're there. And they all have their little comments and things to say about it. Like, Midge is like, I'm so happy.
Yeah, it's really sweet. And then it cuts to their wedding. The back of the train that they're riding off on just says
Yeah.
just married.
Yeah.
We find out that Jack ends up taking her to Florence for their honeymoon, so she
Mhm.
finally got the stamp on her passport.
Yes.
And the last line of the movie is, Peter asked me how I fell in love with Jack, and I told him it was while you were sleeping. Yes, they said the,
The
title of the movie. It was like one of those, yeah.
You gotta, especially with a title like that. I'm like, ugh,
And
someone new.
Because if you like say, oh, while you were sleeping, because I thought it was a horror movie.
I know,
When
and I
first
told you,
brought
like,
it
oh,
up.
we should watch While You Were Sleeping.
And I brought it up to Andrew when we were when we were
Mhm.
about to record it, or when I was watching it. He was like, I thought you guys weren't doing horror movies. Like, I'm not kidding. And I was like, no, it's like a
Yeah.
romance, because it feels like while you
It
were
does.
sleeping, it feels like creepy. But when you hear, it's like, oh, they fell in love while he was like in a coma. So
Yeah.
it all it's a full circle, all makes sense.
Yeah, right.
But if you hear the movie, it's like, oh my god, that's a horror movie.
Yeah.
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 And that's the end of the movie.
Yeah, that's it. Final thoughts. I love this movie.
Yeah.
It was like, it's one of my mom's favorite like rom-coms, and she's not a cheesy lady, but everyone has those movies. We
Yeah.
have a million of them.
Oh yeah. But it's a good bad movie.
Oh
Do
my
you know
gosh,
what I mean?
yeah,
it's
it's
a
not
really
like-
good movie.
Yeah, it's very well written. It
Yeah.
knows that it's a rom-com, so it's cheesy, but like the acting is phenomenal. The jokes always make me laugh. And something about like when it's taking place just feels very nostalgic.
Yeah.
I think having it set during like over the holiday season helps with that.
And I think it's going to be definitely a movie I watch, because this is my first time really watching it. I'd really never delved into it because, again, I thought it was a horror movie. So that's While You Were Sleeping. Really great movie. And we're going to start some new fun things in the future. A Patreon, I think, is what we're starting right now.
Yeah, we have a Patreon going. Right now it's just a $1 kind of donation on a monthly basis if you'd like to help, just because we have hosting fees.
Yeah.
So essentially we pay $15 a month so we can have this up on all of the podcast sites. So that would just cover that cost a little bit just to
Yeah.
help us out, because we like doing this, and also we want to improve it and make it better. And something that we've done now is we had a whole session where we've planned out a lot of future episodes so we
Yeah.
can be very consistent this year. The goal is going to be every other week on Fridays.
Yeah.
So that way you can get used to our schedule and we can get used to that schedule as well.
Yes, because we need, the holidays were just kind of crazy. You won't see this until February, so January was kind of a planning month, but it was good to get everything planned and figure that out. So starting February, like the first weekend or the first Friday in February, I think is when we're going to start really going for it. So be on the lookout for that. And later on, I think we're going to add some more tiers, but for now, it's just that $1. So next, we're doing Raise Your Voice with Hilary Duff.
I can't wait.
I'm excited. That is a really good, bad movie. So be on the lookout for that. Thanks everyone for listening. We're having a lot of fun doing this. We're excited to kind of get on a consistent schedule. As always, you can find us on TikTok and Instagram. Any suggestions for movies that you guys might want are always recommended and encouraged. But yeah, other than that, thanks for listening.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
See you next time. Bye. Okay.
She doesn't sweat at all.
Hey, Luce, is this guy bothering you?
Are you kidding me?
Are we bad at watching movies?
That sucks.